Preparations are underway for the Howdy Modi event at Houston, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Donald Trump will share the stage. Last night, Prime Minister Modi left for the US and would be landing in Texas at 11 p.m., which is the Indian Standard Time. Over 50,000 Indian Americans are expected to participate in the mega Howdy Modi event at the NRG Stadium on Sunday. In his departure statement ahead of the week-long visit, Prime Minister Modi referred to the Indo-US relations and said that the two nations can contribute to building a more peaceful, stable, secure, sustainable and a prosperous world. In Houston, Modi would be also interacting with the CEOs of leading energy companies in the US with an aim to enhance the India-US energy partnership. All right, let's now get an update from the ground. Gaurav Sawant there reporting from Houston. Gaurav, what are Prime Minister Modi's engagements as soon as he lands in Houston and the interaction with the CEOs first?
As soon as Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives here at Houston, he has a series of meetings lined up. As soon as he lands here, he will get into a meeting with the head honchos of oil and gas companies at Houston. Houston, anyway, is known as the energy capital of the United States of America, and more than a dozen CEOs of oil and gas companies, they've already started arriving for a meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and this is the biggest gathering of CEOs to meet a foreign head of government. Now, this also shows that the CEOs of various oil and gas companies here are very keen to listen to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and perhaps his conversation with the CEOs will decide the road ahead for their investment in India's gas and oil needs. So India requires a lot of energy. Texas may be able to provide that energy. Apart from that, some of that, can that be harnessed in India? Will they invest in India? All of that remains to be seen. So the government has made a conscious effort to send out positive signals that India is open for business. There is ease of business in India. The tax regime has also been sorted out to an extent which the government hopes will be the incentive for some of these CEOs to come into India. The fact that so many CEOs are coming to listen to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, according to the government, is an indication that there is a lot of interest in the India story, and the government hopes it will be taken to a logical conclusion.
All right, Gaurav Sawant getting us all the updates there from Houston. Now, India's ambassador to the USA, Harshvardhan Shringla, asserted that the India-US strategic relationship has the potential to become a defining partnership within this century. Listen in to this exclusive interview of Ambassador Shringla ahead of the Howdy Modi event.
The stage is set for Howdy Modi, and with me at Houston is India's ambassador to the United States of America, Harshvardhan Shringla. Ambassador, welcome on India Today. Ambassador, has something like this ever happened before, that the President of America drops in for a community event for the Prime Minister of India?
Well, as far as I know, this is an unprecedented and therefore a historic event. You've never had an instance before where the Prime Minister and the President of India have together traveled to a country, to a city outside of the capital or New York, which is the UN headquarters, to address such a large gathering of Americans, Indian Americans, but US citizens. And I think from that perspective, this is going to be a very momentous event.
And what does this signify in your appreciation, Ambassador?
Well, I think it represents the fact that relations between India and the United States have come of age. We have reached a level of cooperation that is close and comfortable enough for the President of the US and the Prime Minister of India to come together and jointly address a gathering of over 50,000 people. It also means that the personal chemistry between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump are of a level that makes them both comfortable in appearing together in front of such a large group of people.
Do we expect this to lead to something, or is this just an event in itself?
Well, it is a goodwill event, and it is certainly one that reinforces the close bonds of friendship and cooperation between the world's oldest and largest democracies. It reinforces our shared values and principles. It also, I think, recognizes and acknowledges the success and contribution of the Indian-American community that has been, in many senses, as our Prime Minister called it, the living bridge between India and the United States.
Because some people have been also saying that it's a big event, but will there be something tangible that will emerge from it? Or is that a wrong way of looking at it?
Well, you know, everything is not seen in transactional terms, but when you have a goodwill, what this signifies is a sense of goodwill and bonding, and that will certainly lead to tangibles which cannot be identified. But whether you talk about better trade relations, better investment ties, better people-to-people contacts, links at the political levels, this sort of an event where the top elected leadership of our countries is coming together, and keep in mind that you will have a very good number of US senators and congressmen present on the occasion also. You are creating the atmospherics and conditions for an enhanced relationship in many ways which cannot be pre-identified, and neither is it intended, but you will have the, I would say, unintended consequences of this of a meeting of this magnitude and let's say scale.
Ambassador, the US president seemed to indicate that there could be a big announcement. He said this to the American press. Could this be something on the lines of trade talks, which many said were held up, or there were many niggles?
Well, I think there are many important areas in which the two countries are working together. Trade, investments, energy cooperation, defense cooperation, and some of these areas could result in, as you call it, tangibles that could be, I would say, it could coincide with the visit of the Prime Minister to the United States. Whether it is during the Houston leg or the New York leg, when there is a meeting scheduled between the Prime Minister and President, also is difficult to say, but it is possible that we could, be talking about issues on which we have certain convergences.
This is in New York and Houston, so two visits here, two interactions here. They've had two interactions in the past. Does that signify something, sir?
Well, if you take into account the fact that since Prime Minister Modi's re-election in May this year, the Prime Minister and President Trump have met twice already, and would be meeting twice more in the course of a week, the next week in the United States, means that the top leaders of our countries are meeting, would have met 4 times in the matter of 3 or 4 months, and that itself is a very significant illustration of the closeness and I would say in many senses the real value that our ties reflect.
Sir, some people have been saying that this is a very expensive event. Figures of 1.4 lakh crore were attributed politically. Is Government of India spending any money in this?
Well, I don't know how much money has been spent by the community, but let me tell you that this is an event organized completely by the Indian community in the United States. The Howdy Modi event is a registered event. It has been arranged by the Indian community, the Texas India Forum, which was set up for this purpose, and clearly they have raised every single pie that has gone into this particular event. As far as I know, no government funds have been used for this event. Obviously, the Prime Minister's visit to the United States is an official visit, but the Howdy Modi event is one that involves the Indian community in the US.
Ambassador, if we now shift focus to the second leg of the visit at the United Nations, he's addressing the United Nations General Assembly. The Prime Minister is having several significant bilaterals. Can you tell us something more about the bilaterals that he's having there?
Well, this aspect of the Prime Minister's program is handled by a permanent mission to the UN. I know that he would be participating in the high-level segment of the UN General Assembly. There is a Climate Action Summit in which the Prime Minister will be a keynote speaker. He's also a keynote speaker in a sustainable development event, as also an event that involves other areas of our cooperation. The 150th anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi will also be commemorated in the United Nations. All of these events will be attended by other heads of state and government, and I think these are very, very momentous events in the UN and in the margins of the United Nations. But the Prime Minister would equally be having some economic level commitments. He'll be addressing the Bloomberg Forum. He'll be making the keynote address in the opening plenary of that session. He would also be having a separate interface with top US CEOs, some 40 top companies representing very high order of magnitude in terms of total turnover of these companies, representing several trillions of dollars. And he would also be awarded special award by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for pioneering initiative undertaken in the field of sanitation at the grassroots levels in India.
So while all of this happens, and as we, try and soar higher, there are some who will try to bring us down on issues of Kashmir or on other aspects. Does that worry us or concern us?
Our agenda is a constructive agenda. We are building bridges. We are reaching out to people. We are creating scope for investments, increasing productivity. Prime Minister will be talking about, how to use sustainable development, how to ensure that climate change impact is mitigated. He would be working with global leaders in this regard. So, in many senses, it is an agenda in which we are contributing to the cause of global sustainable development, peace, and security, and that is our effort. And certainly, we are not going to be distracted by some minor, I would say, let's say, attempts to provide some interference in what is a larger and very, very productive agenda, both in the United States and in terms of our global outreach during this visit.
And the world, anyway, is seeing things from the correct perspective, from our perspective on development in Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes, I think there is a very good understanding of the rationale for the steps that we have taken internally in reorganizing the state of Jammu and Kashmir and modifying Article 370 in ultimately in the best interests of our citizens in Jammu and Kashmir. And I think there's an understanding not only on the level of the administration, but there is a fairly good understanding among members of Congress, even those who have raised certain issues on account of constituency pressures from certain sections of their constituencies. I think even they understand that ultimately this is an initiative that provides an alternative, a new paradigm, provides the possibility of the people of Jammu and Kashmir to have far better prospects than they have had in the past of good governance, socio-economic justice, and of course development for the state.
Ambassador Shringla, for the moment, many thanks for speaking to us here at
much,
India Today.
For having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Ambassador Shringla, India's ambassador to the United States, giving us details about the Prime Minister's itinerary, first here at Houston and then New York. With cameraman Kripal Singh and Nishant Chaturvedi, Gaurav Sawant in Houston for India Today.
And not just that, India Today is the only channel reporting from inside the NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas, and that's exactly where the preparations are in full swing for the Howdy Modi event. My colleague Gaurav Sawant bringing us this exclusive report of what's been happening at the stadium.
The energy at the NRG Stadium has to be seen to be believed. We are inside the NRG Stadium at Houston, Texas, and take a look at the preparations for the Howdy Modi event. These are young school and college students. They are practicing on the stage. So let's go closer. Let's take a look at that stage. That's the stage where students and volunteers will be performing. This is the Indian community that will be showcasing India's rich cultural heritage and tradition on the dais. The US President Donald Trump will be here. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be here. There will be more than 50 US senators, congressmen, lawmakers, mayors, governors, all in attendance. In fact, even as we speak, you can see there's a meeting of White House officials and the Indian embassy here in Washington. Currently in Houston, their officials are having a meeting. There are other volunteers there. Every section here in this stadium, which can seat up to 50,000 people. So in all, this is one of America's largest football stadiums. It's an indoor football stadium. It can seat up to 70,000 people, but 20,000 people behind that black curtain there. No seating in that area. There will be people here. Giant screens have been put up for those who are in those red stalls up there, for them to be able to see the stage very clearly. Blue stalls, red stalls, volunteers, and of course VVIP guests in the center stands all the way there. Let me quickly bring in some of the volunteers who've been working here, members of the Indian community. With me is Rakhi, with me is also Vinay Anand. But Rakhi, I want to understand from you, tell us more about the preparations. How many volunteers? What's going to happen?
So there's more than 1,500 volunteers for this event. It's probably one of the largest volunteer-driven events in the United States. They've been working on this for a couple of months, working to get the program set, working to, deal with the registration issues. There's a lot of people that are dying to come for this event, and it's just, unfortunately, there's no more seats.
So 50,000 people will be sitting here, all of this place, and there are still people waiting. They want to come in, but you said there are no more seats for them.
There's no more seats. I mean, it's just very difficult at this point, but there's a lot of people that are very eager to come and see the Prime Minister in person, to hear what he has to say. It's a matter of pride for all of us that are so far away from home.
It indeed is. So is this more about people wanting to see Prime Minister of India, or is this more about wanting to see the US President here?
I think it's mainly Prime Minister Modi, because the community that is excited and very excited is Indo-American community. But when Trump announced that he's also coming, that became like what you call is like Sone Pe Suhaga. Like it became like double the fun.
Okay.
And you can see the excitement of the kids, and like kids who are born and brought up here, who doesn't know about like Modi too much, but they all will be chanting Modi, Modi. We were just like looking at those kids. They were like shouting Modi, Modi right now, and the stadium was already vibrating. So all the positive energy and everything you see here, I have never seen in 21 years of my life here in Houston.
Okay, which is quite exciting, because nobody's telling these children what to say. Many of them have only seen Prime Minister Narendra Modi on television screen. Many of them say they're very excited that they'll be seeing him for the first time. Some of them told us they also have their autograph books. Will the Prime Minister have time to sign their autograph books? Well, that remains to be seen. But there's more excitement about meeting the Indian Prime Minister more than meeting or seeing the US President, who will also be on stage here on the 22nd of September. So these children, they've come here after school. Some, of course, took a day off from school to practice. Others, they went to school. Once school got over, then they came here for the practice session, and they will be burning the midnight oil. Their teachers, their dance gurus, their parents, the entire community is coming together for this event. Indian flags and American flags, they've been put up all over this place. There was a car rally that was taken out in the morning, again to send out the message how the Indian and American community are working together for a better future of the two democracies, the oldest and the largest democracies of the world. And of course, one point that the Prime Minister has also stressed on, it's not what India and America can do for each other, but what India and America can do together for the benefit of mankind, for the entire world. That seems to be one of the focus of this Howdy Modi event, Shared Dreams for a Brighter Future. With Nishant Chaturvedi and cameraman Kripal Singh, inside the NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas, Gaurav Sawant for India Today.
So the Indian community sure is excited for the grand Howdy Modi event. So, and here's a report from the India House in Houston, Texas. Take a look at this report.
As the world gets set to say Howdy Modi, the India Today team is at India House. This 30,000 square feet sprawling complex in Houston is perhaps a symbol of how strong the Indian community is in Houston. And some of the members here, the pillars of strength of the Indian community, they've played a pivotal role in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's trip to Houston and the fact that the US President Donald Trump is coming here. Let me begin by asking some of the community members, what does this signify, sir?
This signifies strength of our Indian community here in Houston. our Indian community in Houston is stronger than any other place in the US or anywhere else in the world, in my opinion.
It's amazing. Some of these people here came to the United States of America with barely $8 in their pocket. And today, some are millionaires, many are billionaires. And they're giving back to the society. What America also learns from India is keeping the family together. 3 generations of a family in this particular room. Is that something that America learns from India, Doc?
Absolutely. Those are the type of cultural values that we want to transmit. I'm fortunate to have my father here, I'm here, and my daughter Manya is here. So we each try to participate in India House. And this is what we want to give back to our community. Because if we give, we learn, and we get a lot more.
So what is it for Donald Trump when he comes to Houston and meets Prime Minister Narendra Modi at Houston? What message does that send out?
Well, the message should be, in my opinion, that India and America have to work together for the developments of both the countries, and we wish them a real good luck.
Okay. Now, when we talk about India House, when we talk about the Indian community here, is there reason to be concerned that there are protests that are happening while the Prime Minister and the US President meet?
Well, that is something normal. It will happen. You cannot stop people. It's a free country. But as far as the Indian community is concerned, there is absolutely no concern about it, because those people will keep on protesting. They are basically jealous. They are envious where India has reached diplomatically and economically, and in other world stage, we have really, as they say, we have arrived.
We've arrived. Is that the message that goes out when Prime Minister Narendra Modi comes here and the US President shares the stage with him at Houston?
Well, absolutely. And you earlier talked about the 3 generations. What you see here right now is India House. In addition to India House, there are 80 to 100 organizations here. And what we do is imbibe cultural value in our next generation, and they carry on that legacy.